Hello and welcome to the deep dive spoiler-filled discussion of 2018's Summer of 84. The portion that I obviously want to get talking about right away is the climactic ending and the very ending. But first, the climactic ending, when the showdown is happening on the island and the characters are running through there, chasing each other. First of all, when that was happening, when it first started happening, I thought it was very unnecessary. I thought it was very, okay, we're going to put them on this island and we're going to chase them around for no particular good reason. It's like, if I were the villain, why not just kill them? But I saw where they were going with it, and I saw where they wound up. It took me by surprise, and it put me in a very good state of unease, which I really like. I mean, I watch horror movies for a reason, to be scared, to be terrified, to be put at unease, to be brought out of my comfort zone. I think that's one of the points of it, and this movie did a fantastic job of that. The portion that I thought really took things to the level of, okay, well, now we have definitely taken a big shift in tone, is when Caleb Emery's Woody character got his throat cut. I thought that was very, very brilliant on the filmmaker's part, because I didn't think it could happen. They had established that this is a juvenile thriller kind of, Rear Window-esque movie that, in the end, okay, the killer's not going to get away with it. The characters are going to survive. They're going to be buddy-buddy. And they established backstory of the Woody character, that his mom needs him. And, you had the main character being heroic. Okay, you head out here, I'll distract him. And then Woody got his throat cut and died. And totally changed the movie. Now we are in truly adult territory. Now we have changed the type of movie this is. And again, established complementary contrasts with the rest of the movie that we had just seen. And I thought that was brilliant. It just completely threw the rules out, threw the stereotypes out, threw all of the stuff that we had gotten accustomed to out the window. And now we're off and running, which is strange to think that it was in the last 5-10 minutes of the movie. But now we're off and running. And now the main character is in true jeopardy. Anything could happen at this point. And that's one of the things I love, is when I can be kept on my toes. And, all those things that I thought, it can't happen because of, this cinematic rule and this cinematic rule. Like, no, it can happen. So, then, Wayne gets him in his sights, has him, right where he wants him. And then I thought this was brilliant. A serial killer realizes that there's something worse than being killed, and delivers that with a powerful punch, and then gets away. When he said that, I will come for you one day, you will not know when that day is. I am going to do something worse than kill you. I am going to make you look over your shoulder for the rest of your life. I thought that was chilling and brilliant, and I loved it. And the delivery by Rich Sommer was amazing in that. I cannot compliment that enough. I thought it was wonderful in the most terrible, macabre way, but wonderful. And I think it really elevated the movie for me. And then the very final ending came when the overlaying dialogue is being spoken again, but, he's going through his neighborhood. And this is one part that I thought was fairly haunting for me, is how real it was in terms of the relationships that we build as adolescents, and how instantly they can end with so little fanfare. So many movies are good about, high school's ending, we're going off to college, to different states, and we're going to have a grand party, and I'll remember you forever and stay in touch, and it lasts for an hour. But no, in this movie it felt more real. It felt more, that girl that I connected with and finally talked to and got to kiss and so on and so forth, now she's in the backseat of the car heading out, and that was it. Gone. That's a lot of times how life works. And the friends that he had made that still survived don't seem to be talking to him, don't seem to have too much interest in things anymore. They're hauling stuff out of the house, and there's not even, a head nod or a wave. Sometimes that is how life works. People enter our lives and people exit our lives. And I thought this movie did a good job of capturing the realism of that, almost to a depressing level. But, okay, if you're watching this and you are in your teens or even in your early 20s, it's not a depressing thing. It's simply life. It's simply how life tends to work sometimes. And yeah, it can seem like things are stacked against you, and it can seem depressing that the relationships that you've worked so hard for and you worked, that much for can end so abruptly. But here's the thing is, to get totally philosophical on you, but, I guess buckle up a little bit. If you think of your life as the entirety of a book, and every day you turn the page, sometimes there are major events that, when you turn the page, you're presented with a new chapter. And, oftentimes there's not a lot of fanfare and there's not a lot of information leading up to it. Sometimes you turn the page and it's a new chapter, and what's on that page is taking you totally by surprise. Well, I didn't see that coming. That character's not around anymore. But you know what? During that chapter, there's probably going to be a new character showing up. Life is full of interesting moments like that, and I think that that's the best way to live life, is one chapter at a time and not being afraid to turn to the next one. If you have a relationship that has run its course and finds its way to its ultimate conclusion, whether it be, with, explosions or whimpers, it doesn't mean that is the end of the book. It just means that may be the end of that chapter, and it's time to turn to the next one. And you would be surprised what you'll find on that next one. And just the same as a good book, if you're on chapter 20, it's really fun to look back on chapter 2 and reflect on how much progression has happened since then, how much your main character, you, have changed since then and grown as a result of all those different chapters that have happened. So I thought this movie was good about, showing how relationships like this can wind up doing what they do. And it's not always a glamorous thing. It's not always something with finality and closure. So what else about this movie? I actually, speaking of those two characters that were, the friends that wasn't talking to him at the end, I thought that was pretty brilliant how, throughout the movie, they were on board with the theory, but at the same time, they were skeptical and they wanted to support their friend, but they didn't want to get into trouble. And it was a very kind of, butting heads dynamic there. And in the end, at the slightest hint that, we have this small piece of evidence that he didn't do it, good enough, I'm out. And then they were out. They were totally out. I thought that was brilliant. It wasn't a trick on the audience. It wasn't, that they went away and then they're going to show up at the last minute. It's like, you know what? That's good enough for me. I'm gone. And they were. I like that. And again, it's the complementary contrast. It's establishing the stereotypes and then just tossing them in the wastebasket. So you don't really see it coming. You don't really expect what happened to happen. The fake outs that were established with Rich Summer, with the Wayne, or not the Wayne character. That was interesting. And the one thing that I don't know if I would have done if I were to be really being critical of the storyline and the chronological plot points that it mapped out, the one thing that I think that I personally would have left out is the Davy character seeing the ginger kid across the street in Wayne's window. And here's why. This movie was full of fake out moments. The Davy character presenting, well, here's a whole bucket full of evidence. And then when presented against Wayne, it's like, well, here's an explanation for that. Here's an explanation for that. Here's an explanation for that. And all of that was credible. Even if it wasn't entirely believable, it was credible. And for me, as an audience member, I was wondering whether or not Wayne actually was the serial killer. It was an interesting dynamic there. But the thing that always grounded it was the fact that the ginger was in the window. You know, this missing kid has been reported missing, was in this guy's house. And if that element hadn't been there, then it would have brought the audience along for the ride, that the same ride that Davy's friends were going through. You know, do I believe my friend? You know, he has some evidence here. Oh, but Wayne has this other evidence that supports, you know, his alibis and his, you know, he's able to refute this. So who do I believe? And you know, the more extreme that Davy's going in his investigation, tearing up his garden and breaking into his house, I think lends itself to that. If we were truly skeptical about the evidence that Davy was being, you know, was presented or was presenting, that it would have heightened that tension. You know, it's not just, is he breaking into this house and is Wayne coming back? It's, is he breaking into this house and is Wayne coming back? And is Wayne actually even the killer? Is Davy breaking into an innocent man's house and tearing up his garden and ultimately threatening somebody that has done nothing but be a good cop in his community? But the ginger kid was in the window. It's really, you know, that's one that, you know, it never had a good explanation. It just relied on, well, my word against yours, hearsay kind of thing. You know, you were just, you know, it was a late night and you had a pastrami sandwich, so, you know, just go to bed. It's fine. But we know as the audience, we saw the ginger kid in the window too. So I was kind of expecting a little bit of a fake out with that. Like maybe we didn't see exactly what we saw. Maybe it really was his cousin and just kind of, and that they were like going to flashback with the proper kid, you know, the different actor in play. And it's like, well, that's what actually happened. That maybe the first time we were only seeing it through the eyes of Davy. But regardless, I thought that was just a small element in an otherwise brilliant movie that I thought was, again, not just redeeming itself, but changing the way I looked at every aspect of it. So that's about all I have for Summer of '84. What I would like at this point is to hear from you. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you want to talk about this movie, I would love to engage in this with you. So please leave comments on this. If you haven't yet, I would invite you that if you like these reviews, just go ahead and click subscribe. Other than that, I appreciate you joining me here today, and I will see you tomorrow.